The chamber of the Grand Assembly shimmered with light refracted through crystal walls, a cathedral of arrogance floating at the heart of the Threx Dominion's core world. Aliens of 100 species gathered in tiers of floating platforms, their scaled hides, feathered crests, or plated shells glinting under artificial suns. It was a spectacle designed to remind lesser civilizations of their place, to intimidate, to crush the spirit before the blade ever fell. For centuries it had worked. Empires bent their knees here, pledging tribute beneath the sneering gaze of the Threx. But today, the air hummed with a different kind of anticipation. Today, the target was Earth. The alien general stood in the center of the dais, a towering brute clad in armor forged from the bones of a conquered leviathan. His tusks curved upward like scimitars, his eyes glowed with implanted fire, and his voice, when it rolled out, was amplified by a dozen resonant chambers hidden in the hall. He spread his 4 arms wide and bellowed, "The humans are cowards. You've all seen their broadcasts. They laugh, they play, they hide behind their strange rituals and shallow smiles. They chatter of peace while building weapons they never dare to use. They are weak, soft. They cling to their small blue world like frightened hatchlings afraid of the dark." Ripples of approval echoed from the audience. Some beat their claws against the railing, others hissed. Others drummed their chest plates in thunderous agreement. The general let the wave crest, then lifted one massive claw for silence. His eyes narrowed, the glowing embers focusing with predatory intent. "And yet," he growled, "they insult us by refusing surrender. They hide behind irony and jokes, as if war is a plaything. So I, General Korath of the Threx Dominion, invite them here. Let them send their bravest, their finest. Let them show us what Earth dares to put forward in the face of true power. And let the galaxy laugh when they are crushed." A roar shook the hall. The declaration was beamed live to every Dominion world, to allied empires, to neutral systems watching with morbid curiosity. Billions witnessed the spectacle. On forgotten mining stations, on desert moons, in glittering palaces, aliens leaned toward their screens and waited. Few expected the humans to respond. Many assumed they would surrender or vanish into silence. But then the chamber doors opened. 2 figures walked in. At first the crowd thought it must be a mistake. Surely Earth would send a delegation, a cluster of frail diplomats hiding behind datapads, babbling about treaties. But no, only 2. They were unarmored, unaccompanied, unafraid. The first was a tall man in a plain dark coat, his boots worn, his posture unremarkable. His hair was graying at the temples, his expression almost absent-minded, as though he had wandered into the wrong meeting. Yet there was something about the stillness of his stride, the unhurried confidence of each step, that made even hardened predators lean back without knowing why. His eyes, flat gray and disturbingly calm, swept across the chamber, and a shiver passed through species that had never known fear. Beside him walked a woman of striking poise, her black attire simple, her hair bound in a knot at the back of her head. Her beauty was not ornamental, but edged like steel, a refinement of angles and shadows. She smiled faintly as she entered, a smile that made the feathers rise on the necks of avian envoys and the armored scales of reptilian warriors clench tight. She carried no weapon, yet every movement suggested she could turn the very air into one. Together, they crossed the floor in silence, their footsteps echoing like a drumbeat in the hollow chest of the galaxy. Whispers spread through the chamber. 2? Only 2. Where are their guards? Is this some insult? No, it's a trick. The wise ones among them, the few who studied predators rather than preening like conquerors, did not whisper. They watched. The man inclined his head politely to the general, as if greeting a neighbor across a fence. His voice, when it came, was soft. "Thank you for the invitation. It's hospitable of you." His words carried no amplification, yet they seemed to settle heavily in the hall, heard by all. The woman's smile deepened, her eyes sweeping across the tiers of alien faces, as though cataloging prey. She said nothing, and somehow that was worse. General Korath barked laughter. "This is your delegation? 2 flesh bags? Earth truly mocks us." He pointed a massive claw at the man. "And you are what? Some farmer dragged from his dirt fields? A preacher of your laughable fates? Where is your army, human? Where are your fleets? Did they hide behind your moon?" His laughter rattled the air. The man only shrugged. "They stayed home. Thought it'd be more polite if we kept this simple." He glanced sideways at the woman. "Besides, there's two of us. Don't you think that's enough?" The chamber rippled with unease. Some aliens laughed uncertainly, thinking it bravado. Others frowned, hearing something in his tone, something not quite jest. The woman finally spoke, her voice smooth as silk sliding over glass. "You wanted to see Earth's finest," she said, her words curling like smoke. "Well, here we are." Karath sneered. "Do you think words will save you? You stand in the cradle of galactic power. Empires bow here. We write history with blood. And you dare to face us with wit." He jabbed a claw into the air. "You are insects, and insects are crushed." The woman tilted her head, studying him like a specimen under glass. Her smile never wavered. "Funny," she murmured, "where we come from, insects often survive what giants do not." The hall murmured. The general's eyes blazed. "Enough games. You mock us. You mock the Dominion. Do you truly believe two humans can resist what galaxies could not?" The man's gaze met his. Calm, flat, endless. He spoke quietly, and somehow the entire hall leaned in to hear. "Do you want us to show you why only two of us came?" The words struck like a hammer on iron. Silence swept the chamber. In the tiers above, wings folded tight, claws froze mid-motion, quills lay flat. It was not the threat that unsettled them, it was the absence of threat. He had spoken like a man offering tea. No bluster, no roar. Just fact. The fact of inevitability. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The general bared his tusks, but some of the fire in his eyes flickered with doubt. He growled, "You think fear will win you mercy? You think your riddles frighten us?" The woman's laugh was soft, amused, unhurried. "Oh no, fear isn't the point. Fear is just the first step." She glanced toward the nearest envoy, a fragile amphibian diplomat who flinched beneath her gaze. "The point is memory. You invited us here. You called us cowards. And now, you will remember us differently." Karath slammed his claws down, cracking the stone dais. "You will entertain us, then. If you are so certain of your strength, you will prove it. Before this council, before the galaxy, you will face our champions. You will bleed in this hall." He bared his tusks in triumph, mistaking his command for control. "Then, and only then, shall we see what Earth amounts to." The man gave a small nod, as though agreeing to a neighbor's request for borrowed sugar. The woman simply tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, her smile as sharp as a blade. Neither flinched, neither argued. They accepted. The silence of the chamber stretched taut. Somewhere in the upper tiers, a scholar whispered what others had begun to suspect. They're not posturing. They're not afraid. They're not even trying yet. And still the two humans stood there, as ordinary as dust, as unyielding as stone, as inevitable as the night. Two shapes on the floor of a galactic empire. Two figures against the weight of billions. Yet somehow, impossibly, it felt as though the balance had shifted. The hunters were suddenly aware of the possibility that they were prey. General Karath raised his arms and roared, "Let the games begin." The chamber thundered with applause, claws, and screeches, but the sound rang hollow against the stillness of the two figures who stood unmoved in its heart. The man's eyes met the general's once more. He spoke softly, almost kindly, as if delivering advice that would one day be remembered as prophecy. "Just remember, you asked for this." And with that, the hall seemed to darken, though no light had changed, and a cold hush swept across a galaxy that realized it had just opened a door it would never be able to close. The roar of the assembly had scarcely died when the floor of the grand chamber began to shift. Plates of obsidian metal groaned apart, opening to reveal a pit beneath, its depths glowing with the heat of containment fields. From that void came the sound of chains rattling, of guttural growls reverberating like earthquakes through the marrow. The crowd leaned forward in hungry anticipation. The gladiatorial games of the Threx Dominion had reduced countless species to spectacle, a theater of humiliation disguised as law. Now, Earth's emissaries were to be made into entertainment. General Korath spread his arms, his tusks gleaming in the artificial suns. "Behold," he thundered, "the Vorakai beasts of Ju, creatures that have slaughtered entire colonies. They know neither pity nor fear." He turned his burning gaze toward the two humans standing alone on the dais. "Let these humans show us their courage. Let the galaxy see them torn apart." Chains snapped. From the pit surged nightmares made flesh. The beasts towered 3 times the height of a man, their hides armored with plates of jagged chitin, their maws lined with rows of rotating teeth that shrieked as they opened. 6 limbs, taloned and bladed, scraped across the floor as they rose. Their eyes glowed with a feral intelligence, and their roars shook the chamber's walls. The scent of scorched meat and sulfur accompanied their emergence. The humans did not move. The man adjusted his coat collar, as though bracing against a breeze that didn't exist. He rolled his shoulders once, the casual gesture so absurd in the moment that a few alien delegates hissed with confusion. The woman lifted her hands to tie her hair back with a thin strip of cloth, her fingers unhurried, her posture serene. It looked less like preparation for battle than a hostess tidying herself before pouring tea. The crowd jeered, screeched, laughed. Yet beneath the mockery, tension coiled. The wise ones whispered to themselves, sensing something amiss. The humans were too calm, far too calm. The beasts lunged. The first charged like a boulder loosed from a mountain, claws gouging trenches into the metal. It struck with the momentum of an avalanche. The woman stepped forward, unarmed, unarmored, her smile faint. At the last instant, she pivoted, fluid, precise, and her hand slashed across the beast's throat. No blade glittered, no weapon was visible, yet the creature collapsed in a spray of black ichor, its body convulsing as though every nerve had been severed. She flicked her wrist as though discarding dust. Gasps rippled across the chamber. The other beasts bellowed and swarmed. The man exhaled a long breath, almost a sigh. One beast barreled toward him, jaws snapping. He didn't move until the last possible moment. Then, with a single step and a simple punch, he struck it squarely in the chest. The impact sounded like thunder. The beast's massive frame convulsed, lifted clean off the ground, and slammed into the far wall. It slumped, twitching once before falling still. Laughter died in alien throats. The hall that had moments ago been a cacophony of jeers now fell silent, but for the snarling of the remaining beasts. The woman danced among them, her movements economical, merciless. A claw sliced past her cheek by a hair's breadth, and she leaned into the danger, spinning beneath the strike, her elbow snapping another beast's limb backward with a crack that echoed like breaking stone. Her foot lashed out, and the beast staggered, howling, before she leapt onto its back and twisted sharply. Its armored neck broke with a sound that silenced even the most bloodthirsty spectators. She slid down its carcass without a glance back, her eyes glittering with cold amusement. The man faced 2 beasts at once. They circled, frothing, their teeth grinding in hunger. He stood perfectly still, hands loose at his sides. When they lunged together, he stepped forward, caught one claw mid-swipe, and twisted. The alien audience recoiled as the beast's entire arm tore free, wielded like a club in the man's grip. With it, he shattered the skull of the second, the sound like glass crushed under a hammer. He dropped the severed limb with distaste, as though tired of cleaning up messes left by others. Whispers slithered through the assembly. Impossible. They're unarmed. Not even cybernetics. What are they? The final beast, larger than the rest, hesitated. It paced, nostrils flaring, muscles taut. For the first time in its engineered life, it sensed a truth beyond instinct. The things before it were not prey. They were death given shape. The woman crouched, tilting her head, eyes fixed upon the beast. She smiled again, but this smile was wider, sharper. "Come, darling," she whispered. Her voice, soft and beckoning. carried across the hall like a caress that cut. The beast roared in defiance, desperation in its sound, and charged. It leapt with talons outstretched, aiming to crush her beneath its weight. She did not move until it was upon her. Then she slid aside, impossibly graceful, and as it passed, she placed one hand gently against its skull. Her fingers tightened. The beast collapsed mid-stride, its body twitching, its brain silenced as if a switch had been flicked. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Even General Koratha's burning eyes flickered with disbelief. In less than a minute, the beasts that had annihilated entire colonies lay dead or broken. The humans stood untouched, their breathing steady, their clothes unstained. The man glanced around at the hushed audience and spoke with calm politeness. "Is this the part where we clap, or would you prefer we bow?" A nervous, brittle laugh escaped from some delegate high in the tiers, but it died quickly. The woman brushed her hands together softly, the faintest smirk curling her lips. "Not much of a challenge," she said. "I hope you've got something better. Otherwise, this is going to be very dull." The chamber erupted, not with cheers, but with panic. Delegates hissed, argued, screamed at one another. The spectacle had turned sour. What was meant to humiliate Earth had humiliated the Dominion instead. The mighty Vorikai, slain as if they were mere pests. The galaxy's predators now looked upon two unarmed humans and felt the cold itch of unease. General Korath bellowed for silence, his tusks clashing, his armored bulk shaking with fury. "Tricks. Parlor tricks. This proves nothing. You think yourselves strong? You think two frail creatures can stand against fleets? Against the Dominion's armies? We will burn your world to ash." The man tilted his head, his eyes steady and unerringly calm. "That would be unwise." The general snarled. "Unwise? You threaten us." "Not a threat," the man said softly. "A fact." The woman chuckled, low and dangerous. "General, don't confuse courtesy for weakness. If we'd come here to fight, there wouldn't be a chamber left to host us." Gasps swept the assembly. Some leaned forward, eager for blood. Others recoiled, sensing truth beneath the words. Korath slammed his claws into the dais again, cracks spreading like lightning. "Enough. You dare to stand before the Dominion and speak as if you command it." His tusks gleamed with fury. "I will not be mocked by apes who barely escape their own gravity well." The man's gaze never wavered. "Then perhaps you should stop mocking yourself." The insult was delivered with such plain, polite finality that a ripple of shock passed through the crowd. It was not shouted, not wrapped in fire. It was spoken as truth, and that truth cut deeper than any blade. For the first time in decades, the general faltered. His eyes flicked to the corpses at his feet, then to the humans who stood calm among them. The chamber's silence pressed down heavy, suffocating. The woman broke it. Her voice, quiet and amused, carried easily. "General, you made your first miscalculation. You assumed we came here to prove ourselves." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes like knives. "We didn't." The general's breath caught in his throat. He snarled, searching for words, but none came fast enough. The man stepped closer, his shadow stretching long across the shattered dais. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the hall. "We came to show you what restraint looks like." And as the words settled over the assembly, a tremor of realization rippled outward. Because if this was restraint, then what came after would be something no empire was ready to face. The galaxy did not sleep that night. Across millions of systems, beings huddled around broadcasts, their eyes and mandibles and eye stalks fixed on the impossible recording of two humans dismantling the Vorikai like children swatting flies. The feeds replayed endlessly, dissected by scholars, mocked by loyalists, feared by the wise. Some claimed trickery, holographic deception, hidden weapons. Others whispered a more dangerous possibility, that no trickery was needed. On the Dominion's command flagship, General Korath fumed within his war hall, tusks gnashing as officers scrambled to keep pace with his fury. The chamber reeked of scorched circuitry, where his claws had gouged control panels. "Mobilize every fleet. Ring their planet with fire," he roared. His words echoed through ranks of trembling adjutants. We will grind Earth into dust so fine the winds of space will never remember it. But beneath the roar, seeds of doubt wormed through his mind. He replayed the humans' movements in his memory, the casual precision, the absence of fear. Not warriors, not soldiers, something older, something that did not belong on a backwater planet at all. Meanwhile, the humans sat together in a small chamber prepared as their quarters. To the Dominion, it was a cell disguised as hospitality. Steel walls, surveillance eyes hidden behind ornamental patterns, guards stationed outside the door. Yet the two humans lounged as though in a country inn. The woman sat cross-legged on the floor, sharpening a blade that had not been there before, humming a quiet tune under her breath. The man leaned back in a chair, sipping from a steaming mug of coffee he'd produced from a battered tin canister. "How did you even sneak that in?" she asked, eyes glinting with amusement. He shrugged, blowing across the surface. "Nobody looks twice at a thermos. Learned that a long time ago." He took a slow sip, savoring the taste. "Besides, can't start a war without coffee. It's tradition." She chuckled, the sound low and dangerous. "Funny. Back home, they call me a ghost. A whisper in the dark. But you're the real ghost. Ordinary enough to disappear until the lights go out." The man's gray eyes met hers, steady, unblinking. "And when they do, nobody remembers what came next. Only the silence." Outside their chamber, guards shifted uneasily. Though the walls muffled most of the words, the cadence carried, polite, calm, threaded with something colder than threat. One guard whispered to another in his guttural tongue, "Do you feel it? Like the air goes thin when they speak." The other said nothing, his claws trembling. The next morning, the humans were summoned again to the assembly floor. Koroth stood triumphant on the dais, flanked by holographic projections of fleet movements. Thousands of Dominion warships glowed in lines, encircling a single blue and green marble at the center. "Earth, your world is surrounded," Koroth declared, his tusks flashing. "Every route sealed, every star lane cut. Even now our cannons warm to ash your seas. Submit or watch your people burn." His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. Murmurs of approval rippled among delegates eager to erase the memory of their humiliation. The woman tilted her head, studying the map with cool amusement. "You've wrapped your claws around Earth like a snake around a bird." She let the pause linger, then added, "Pity the bird has teeth." Laughter scattered uncertainly. Koroth snarled, slamming a fist against the dais. "You dare mock me still? I will scorch your cities to black glass." The man set down his mug carefully on the railing before him. His voice remained calm, almost sympathetic. "General, you've made your second mistake." The hall hushed. "And what would that be?" Koroth growled. "You assumed surrounding us means you're safe," the man replied. "But when humans feel cornered, we don't shrink. We don't beg. We improvise." As if on cue, alarms flared. Across the projection, glowing dots representing Dominion ships began blinking red. Entire squadrons vanished from the display. The chamber erupted in confusion as officers scrambled, voices rising in panic static across comms. Koroth spun toward his staff. "Report." An adjutant's mandibles clicked frantically. "Ship's gone, my lord. No signals, no debris. They're simply gone." The woman smirked, her voice soft as silk. "Funny thing about your warplanes. They're so predictable, so vulnerable." The man leaned forward, his voice still polite. "We mapped them before we ever came here. A little rearrangement. A nudge here, a collapse there. And entire fleets vanish into nowhere." Delegates gasped. Some screeched in terror, others accused each other of sabotage. The chamber dissolved into chaos. But the two humans stood serenely at its center, like stones in a storm. Koroth bared his tusks, rage boiling. Witchcraft. Lies. The woman's eyes glittered with humor. "You can call it what you like. Back home, we call it engineering." The general roared for his guards. Scores of armored soldiers stormed into the chamber, rifles raised, surrounding the humans. The audience leaned forward, bloodthirsty, desperate for catharsis. The man sighed, rising slowly from his chair. "And now comes your third mistake," he murmured. The guards opened fire. Bolts of plasma lit the chamber in blinding arcs. Smoke filled the air. Delegates screamed, shields flaring, chaos erupting. And when the haze cleared, the humans still stood. The woman moved first, her blade flashing like a shard of moonlight. Guards fell in silence, their weapons clattering across the floor before they understood they were dead. She glided between them, each motion elegant, merciless, her smile never faltering. One soldier raised a rifle to strike her down, but she slipped behind him as if stepping through shadow and drove her blade through his chest without breaking stride. The man walked forward, unhurried. A soldier lunged, and he caught the rifle barrel mid-strike. A twist, a snap, and the weapon bent like tin. With his other hand, he struck once, and the soldier collapsed, helmet caved inward. Another came from behind, and the man turned just enough for the blow to miss, his counter a single strike that broke spine from skull. He fought without flourish, without haste, brutal simplicity that chilled more than spectacle ever could. Within minutes, dozens of guards lay broken across the chamber floor. The humans stood among them, calm as ever, not a drop of sweat on their brows. The delegates stared in horrified silence. The woman turned to the general, wiping her blade on a fallen soldier's cloak. "You wanted entertainment. Was this to your liking?" Koratha's tusks trembled with fury, yet beneath it, fear coiled. His warriors, his fleets, his beasts, all crumbling against two unarmed humans. And still they smiled. The man stepped closer, his voice quiet but carrying like a drumbeat. "We didn't come here to win your games. We came to show you the price of underestimation." Across the galaxy, the broadcast spread faster than light. On mining colonies, dock workers paused to watch. On luxury moons, nobles froze mid-banquet. They watched humans treat the Dominion's might as inconvenience, as chores. And for the first time in memory, the galaxy began to wonder if the monsters in their myths were not legends at all, but visitors from Earth. Hours later, whispers spread through Dominion ranks. Soldiers spoke of the man who walked through barracks at night, and entire units never woke again. Others told of a woman who appeared in command decks, leaving only corpses and graffiti scrawled in blood. "Smile, you're on human time." Paranoia blossomed like wildfire. Commanders armed themselves against shadows. Fleets moved without orders, terrified of unseen sabotage. In taverns on distant moons, smugglers muttered a new phrase with nervous laughter: "The machine gun gospel." No one knew what it meant, only that it clung to the humans like smoke to fire. And still the two emissaries walked calmly through the heart of an empire, drinking coffee, sharpening blades, speaking in tones too polite for the carnage they carried. On the Dominion flagship, Korath sat alone in his chamber, tusks grinding, eyes blazing at the void beyond his window. He had unleashed something he did not understand. He had called them cowards. Yet when he looked into those gray eyes and that razor smile, he saw not cowardice, but inevitability. A transmission chimed, hesitant, crackling, as though sent from a great distance. He accepted. The screen lit with static before resolving into two human silhouettes. The man lifted his mug, sipping calmly. The woman leaned close, her smile sharp as ever. "Check your flagship's coordinates," the man said softly. Alarm screamed. Officers shouted. Lights blazed crimson. Korath turned to his command display just in time to see his fleet unravel. Ships blinking out, swallowed into collapsing corridors of space, vanishing into the void like sparks in a storm. The woman tilted her head, voice lilting with amusement. "General, you just made your fourth mistake." The transmission cut. The chamber shook as space itself began to fold. The flagship trembled as if caught in the jaws of some unseen leviathan. Sirens howled through its corridors, officers shrieked across comms, and Dominion ships winked out on the displays one after another, their signals swallowed by collapsing wormholes. To outside eyes, it looked like a god had reached into the fleet and snuffed stars from the sky. Panic rippled through the command decks of every vessel in range. The Threx Dominion had never seen its armadas scatter so quickly, not in centuries of conquest, not even in the wars that had forged its empire. General Korath gripped the railing before him, claws biting into alloy, his tusks quivering with fury. "How?" he roared, his voice cracking through the chaos. "How is this possible? Find me the saboteurs. Seal the warp lanes. Someone tell me what's happening." But no answers came, only static and terrified muttering. His empire was unraveling in real time, and at its center stood two unarmed humans who spoke as if reading from scripture. In the chamber below the dais, the man stood with his hands folded behind his back, his gray eyes watching the projections vanish one by one. His face betrayed nothing, no glee, no triumph, only inevitability. The woman leaned lightly against the railing, her smile faint and amused, her gaze tracking the chaos as though studying insects in a jar. The galaxy had never felt so small as in that moment, reduced to two human silhouettes against the storm. Korath turned his fury toward them. Witchcraft. No mortal could do this. The man spoke softly, yet the hall heard him over the alarms. Not witchcraft. Preparation. While you preened in your halls, we studied. While you mocked us, we mapped your networks, your trade routes, your choke points. The Dominion's pride is its order. Order is brittle. A single fracture, and the whole structure shatters. The woman's eyes glinted as she added, "You thought we came here alone. We didn't. We are just the voice, the hand you can see. But behind us, the trap was already set." Delegates gasped, some shrieking at the implication. Whole sectors could be burning even now, entire fleets blinking into oblivion. The broadcasts carried their words across the stars, and every alien who listened felt the ground tilt beneath them. Korath slammed his claws against the display, cracking it into shards of light. "You speak of traps and fractures like poets. You think words will save your people? I will kill you here before this council, and your earth will burn with you." The woman chuckled softly, the sound cutting sharper than steel. "General, you still don't understand. Killing us won't change what's already happened." She stepped forward, her presence coiling like a serpent across the chamber. "Your fleets are gone. Your supply lines severed. Your colonies already falling silent. We came to show you restraint, and even that was enough to break you." Korath bellowed for his guards, desperate for control. A new wave of armored soldiers poured into the hall, weapons raised. But they faltered at the sight of the corpses already littering the floor, reminders of how quickly the last wave had fallen. Still, bound by command, they advanced. The man sighed, removing his coat with deliberate calm and folding it neatly over the railing. "Courtesy," he murmured. Then he moved. He met the first soldier with a strike so swift the audience never saw the motion, only the aftermath. Armor crushed inward, body hurled across the chamber like a rag doll. Another aimed a rifle, and the man stepped inside the line of fire, snapping the weapon like twigs and driving the soldier into the floor. Every movement was efficient, stripped of excess, a gospel of violence written in blunt strokes. The woman wove among them like smoke, her blade flashing in arcs of merciless grace. She carved through armor as though it were silk, every cut clean, every death delivered without pause. She whispered as she moved, words only half heard, lullabies twisted into threats, prayers reshaped into executions. Those who heard them froze, long enough to die. Within minutes, silence reigned again. The floor was slick with blood, the chamber reeking of fear. The human stood untouched in the carnage, calm as if emerging from a stroll. Korath's rage curdled into something raw, something he had not felt since he was a hatchling staring into the dark of the caves. Fear. He clutched his weapons, a double-bladed axe taller than most species, and stepped down from the dais. The chamber watched in rapt horror. "You will not mock me further," he growled, his voice low, tusks bared. "I will end you with my own hands." The man inclined his head, almost respectfully. At last, something honest. Korath roared and charged, his axe cleaving through the air with the force of falling meteors. The floor split beneath each strike, sparks showering the chamber. The man met him barehanded, weaving between the blows, his face serene. He caught the haft of the axe mid-swing, the impact shaking the room, and with a twist of his wrist sent the weapon spinning away, embedding in the wall. Gasps erupted from the tears. The general swung with his claws, but the man caught them one by one, twisting, breaking, hurling the massive body against the dais. The chamber shook as Karath fell, but still he rose, roaring, blood dripping from his tusks. He lunged again. This time the man struck once, a single blow to the chest. The sound was like thunder cracking stone. The general staggered, his armor splitting, breath rattling. The woman approached slowly, her smile never faltering. She crouched before the fallen general, tilting her head. "Look at you. A conqueror brought low not by armies, not by fleets, but by the thing you thought weakest." She brushed a finger under his tusk, her touch both tender and cruel. "A lesson, General. Never mistake courtesy for weakness. Never mistake laughter for fear." Karath spat blood, his voice a guttural rasp. "What are you?" The man answered, his voice soft, final. "We are human." The chamber froze in the weight of that word. It echoed across the tiers, through the broadcasts, into the hearts of millions watching. No elaboration, no title, no threat. Only identity. And in that identity lay a truth more terrifying than any weapon. The woman rose, wiping her blade clean. "Your dominion is finished. Not by us, but by your own arrogance. You called us cowards, and we came to show you what cowards do when cornered." Across the galaxy, the feeds flickered with images of Dominion fleets collapsing, of human strikes precise and devastating, of colonies falling silent under sabotage. Empires that had once mocked Earth now whispered of shadows in the dark, of ghosts wearing polite smiles. Panic spread faster than fire, and in its wake, awe. Karath slumped, his breath shallow, the fire in his eyes dimming. Still he tried to rise, clutching at pride like a drowning man clutching at reeds. But the man placed a hand gently on his shoulder and pressed him back down with the weight of inevitability. "This is restraint," the man said softly. "This is mercy." The general's eyes widened, the truth sinking deeper than any blade. He had thought himself the predator, the apex of power. But he saw now that humanity did not fight like conquerors. They fought like inevitabilities, like storms. The mercy he was shown was not kindness, it was a warning. The woman looked to the delegates, who stared in horror and silence. Her voice was quiet, almost tender. "Remember this day. You invited us in. You mocked us. And now you will tell your children the stories. You will whisper our names in the dark. Because monsters don't live under your bed." She smiled, razor sharp. "They live on Earth." The chamber held its breath, every species feeling the same chill. The humans had not shouted, had not raged. They had spoken softly, moved simply, killed efficiently. They had shattered an empire not with armies, but with inevitability. The man retrieved his coat, slipping it back on with deliberate calm. He lifted his mug once more, as if nothing had changed, as if the galaxy had not tilted off its axis. He sipped, then glanced back at the broken general. "Thank you for inviting us, Karath." It was educational. Karatha's lips trembled, a growl lost in his throat. But he could not rise. He could not speak. He could only watch as two humans turned and walked away, leaving silence in their wake. Beyond the chamber walls, the Dominion shattered. Worlds that had once bowed now whispered rebellion. Armies scattered, afraid of shadows. And across the stars, the legend spread. The American Boogeyman and the Baba Yaga, two myths given flesh, who had walked into the heart of an empire and left it trembling. And as the humans disappeared into the corridors, their figures fading into shadow, the final words of the woman lingered in every ear. "We told you. Fear isn't the point. The point is memory." The chamber dimmed, the feeds cut, and a galaxy realized it had opened a door that would never close.